Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Today's lesson is on compare and contrast settings and events from Soldiers, Sleds, and Sam. This is another historical fiction piece. Once you open up the assignment, you will see I will have the recorded lesson posted here. And then I'm going to read aloud the story and explain parts of it for better understanding. Today, you are going to read another story that takes place during the American Revolution. Comparing and contrasting the settings and events in the story can help you better understand what the story is about. Once I finish reading the story, you are going to complete the Compare and Contrast RL 5.3 quiz. And if you need to reread, look back, listen to the recording again to help you answer those questions, please do so, because looking back in the text is going to be the most effective way for you to make sure you are answering them correctly. After you finish the quiz, then you are going to complete the iReady assignment that is already been provided for you, and it will say that your teacher has given you an assignment, and you'll click on that iReady assignment. You can use this link straight from here to help you log into iReady. So again, you don't have a graphic organizer today, so you're going to listen to the story being read, then you're going to complete the compare and contrast quiz, and then you'll log on to iReady for completing that task as well. All right. So today's story is from Soldiers, Sleds, and Sam, and it's a bit ironic with all the snow there. How interesting. The snow squeaked beneath their boots as the three boys tramped toward Sherburne's Hill, their favorite coasting hill in all of Boston. The streets were quiet that snowy January morning in 1775, with only a tight group of British soldiers marching boldly past the silent houses. The boys ignored the soldiers, being used to them. A few thousand British troops were now in Boston, hoping to crush the colonists' growing rebellion against the king and his laws. "Hurry, Sam," called Edward. "You're making us late again." Sam struggled to keep up with his brother and their friend Joshua, but his stiff right leg slowed him down. Every step reminded Sam of that awful day last spring when a British officer had come to his father's blacksmith shop. Sam was proud to hold the horse's leg for his father, but then the horse had kicked hard. A bone in Sam's leg cracked, and the break hadn't healed properly. Now Sam's cheeks turned red when Joshua said, "I thought you were going to get there early today before General Haldeman's servant came out." Sam protested. "It's not my fault. The servant sprinkles ashes on our coasting hill when he cleans the general's fireplace." Joshua looked up and groaned. "Oh no, late again." A man was standing in the middle of Sherburne's Hill, trampling the snow and scattering ashes. "Well, that's it," said Edward, kicking the sled. "If we'd gotten here sooner, we could have had a few good runs before he ruined our hill." "Sure could have," said Joshua, looking at Sam. "Next time he stays home." Sam jammed his icy fingers into his pockets and lifted up his chin. "I may be slow," he finally said, "but I'm not afraid of the redcoats. I'll get the servant to stop." The two older boys hooted with laughter. "You?" said Joshua. "What can you do?" Sam hesitated. What could he do? Then he looked at the servant again and said, "I'll tell him to scatter the ashes someplace else." He started to limp up the hill, Edward and Joshua following. The cold wind bit into Sam's cheeks, but he kept going until he reached the servant. "Please, sir," Sam said, I'd like to make a request." Sam wanted to run, but he had to come too far. "Could you scatter the ashes someplace else? They ruin the snow and we can't coast." The servant laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "It is not for colonist children to tell the British Army what to do. Now run along before I—" Sam didn't hear the rest as Edward grabbed his arm and pulled him away. "Come on," he said. Sam followed Edward and Joshua. how he despised that servant. Coasting was the one time his bad leg didn't matter. Stop, Sam called suddenly. I'm going to see General Haldimand himself. Then you're going alone, said Joshua. He'll never listen to us. Edward looked at Joshua. We'd better stay with Sam, he said. Ma will blame me if anything happens to him. Sam headed for the general's house. He could feel his heart thump, 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 like the steady beat of a drum. He stopped at the heavy wooden door, his knees shaking. But he lifted his hand, made a fist, and pounded as hard as he could. A young soldier opened the door. Who is it, Private? A voice boomed from inside. Let them in and close the door. The wind will blow my fire out. The three boys crowded into the hall to find a big man in a red uniform standing in the doorway. I'm General Haldimand, the man said. He led them into the office. Flames leaped about in a huge stone fireplace. Sam swallowed. Well, sir, he began. I told the general about the hill and the servant. We are free citizens of Boston, he said, and you have no right to destroy our hill. General Haldimand frowned, and Edward tugged at Sam's sleeve. Let's go, he whispered. But this time Sam stood his ground. For 10 long seconds, no one moved. Then the general raised his hands. You win, my lad, he said, smiling. There are already bad feelings between our army and the people of Boston. I shall not add to them, and I will give orders that my servant repair the damage and no longer scatter ashes on your hill. Back outside, Joshua and Edward whooped and shouted in the falling snow. Edward draped his arm around Sam's shoulder, and Joshua patted Sam on the back. You can have the first coast tomorrow, he said. Sam's eyes shone. His sled would fly faster than anyone's. The boys tramped home together through the snow, and no one told Sam to hurry up. Not once. Now I want you to think about the setting and the events of this story. So there are really two settings of this event, and you can really look at it on the second page of it when they discuss how they're going up to the hill. And this is when they are approaching the servant. So they're ready to go sledding on this hill, or they call it coasting. And think about the setting and what it feels like outside. They're located outside. There is snow. There is a cold wind. It ends up making Sam's cheeks cold as well. So think about the setting, temperature outside, and the interaction that they had in those events. Then it completely changes on the next page when they go see the general, and they are inside. There's a fireplace. It's much warmer inside. So there's differences in that as well. Now there is a discussion between the characters as well. The boys with the servant, which was not a very pleasant conversation, and then the boys with the general, which was a much more pleasant conversation. So use that information to help you when you are answering your questions about the settings and the events from this story.